We're on the same. When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past and about the future.
Welcome to Draftvice. Walter, Quinn, Ricky. You may remember him. He's a guest host again. We're all wearing the same clothes from the other podcast. It's okay. Don't worry.
Don't act like you don't like this shirt.
You remember Ricky from both the AFC West podcast and as well as the preview podcast for the draft?
Or you might not. It's fine.
It's fine. And you remember our buddy Quinn? Say hi, Quinn.
I just tell him to set the mic up and I'll show up. That's it.
Yeah. He basically lives by the dumpster by the office. All right. So today we're talking about the NFC West. And what were your thoughts about the San Francisco 49ers? I don't know why we're starting with that instead of the Arizona Cardinals because they had the number 1 overall pick. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. How about that?
We'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. You went back and forth. I was best about to talk about John Lynch. And all right, cool.
Yeah, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Calamare.
Kyler.
I think this dude copped out. I think he's a douche. The guy who picked this kid. I think they already had Josh Rosen. I think they should have picked offensive line. I think he was afraid. He was more afraid that somebody else was going to pick this kid and he was going to be good than actually picking this kid. I think he did it to cover his ass. I don't like that. I don't think it's hardcore.
I think we talked about this a little before the podcast, but Cliff Kingsbury has a lot to do with it in terms of the fit in the scheme. I think Kyler Murray's obviously a really good athlete, which can help the transition when you're still building your offensive line. Rosen can't move out of his own way. And I think that we've seen a little bit of Rosen, enough of Rosen, where I don't think he's going to be that, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's more of like a maybe Andy Dalton.
I think he's better than Dalton. I think he's probably I think he's probably in the Eli Manning area. But even still, Eli Manning in
terms of production, he
NFL,
Eli Manning maybe. But even in terms of production, I know that they're nothing alike. But
Jameis
even like
Winston.
Cam Newton, kind of like, they have those
Hall
years.
of Famer, Eli Manning, future Hall of Famer.
All right.
Like him, you mean?
That's his ceiling, yeah.
Like somebody.
I think it's a ceiling.
Like
I think his ceiling is Phillip Rivers.
In New York again?
I think his ceiling is Phillip Rivers. Or even it could be Brady.
But in terms
that's
of
the highest, like that's in the. I'm saying on a spectrum. I think that when you're looking at the type of quarterback Rosen is. But here's the thing. So Cardinals were thinking outside the box here, right? They went ahead, hired they hired a head coach who was fired from Texas A&M for losing. So yeah, the original thought was this guy was going to be an offensive coordinator. They bring this guy in. They're thinking outside the box. So you know what? You decided to go ahead and invest in this head coach. You had to have had this talk when you came in, and they probably looked at it and said, okay, well, if Kyler Murray comes out, this guy fits your scheme better than any other quarterback in the whole wide world. If he comes out, we'll draft him number 1 overall. I have no problem with that. Because you're saying, listen, we're making a commitment. We think this guy has a really high upside. If we fail, guess what? We can cut our losses eventually because we just proved we are willing to cut our losses, and it's probably Steve Keim's job at the end of the day anyway. So, hold on one second. Hold on.
Okay.
Hang on one
He's on a
second.
roll.
I'm not saying this is – I don't think it's an indictment on Rosen. I don't. I think Rosen can work in a system and be a good player, but when you have a guy coming in and he has a system and you have a player that matches that exact system, you go for it because you got to make sure your team succeeds at all costs. And if you have the perfect marriage, then there's no point in not going for it. And this is a guy who scouted him coming into college and is going to be scouted him coming out of college going into the NFL. So you got to at least believe that Cliff Kingsbury believes in this player. Steve Keim and Kingsbury's job is on the line. And like you said before, athletic quarterback. They have a shitty O-line. They made some moves to try to upgrade the O-line. So they probably said, you know what? Athletic quarterbacks do better under pressure and are able to work with worse O-lines. We saw with Deshaun Watson, who basically has, guys like you and me on the O-line. And they drafted guys like the guy down the block on the O-line. So
Who do you think would win in a fight, Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray?
I think Kyler Murray would kick him in the nuts. Who would win? Actually, that's a good question. I did this joke last year, like with Sam Darnold and Josh Allen.
It's a weird one, but I think that Deshaun Watson is just too big.
Yeah, he's big.
Exactly.
He's got.
That's what I'm saying.
He's got a reach advantage.
You said it, man. Come on.
But I will say this: Kyler Murray could run around. I definitely
So
think Kyler
can
Murray's
Deshaun.
faster. I think Kyler Murray's faster, though. I'm saying.
He is, but wait, how
You're running around
are they
the ring.
running around all of Bergen County, or they get to get in a cage?
So let me just say something. You said this guy cut his losses, right? So he just got the job, and now that's the first thing he does is cut his losses?
Yes. And not for nothing. Listen,
Is that what you do when you get a fucking job?
Yeah, it's called the sunk. Yeah, it's called a sunk lost. It's called a sunk lost. It's called a sunk cost. You realize the cost of this guy. You spent the money already, right? You can either keep on committing to this strategy in this direction, or you go in a different direction and you utilize whatever resources you have to go in this different direction.
Arizona been cutting their losses for fucking decades now. Well, what have they ever won? Come on, man. Get in the fucking. What is this new coach? Isn't he like doing something weird? Wasn't he like we don't have to practice or some shit? What was he
What are
saying?
you talking about? Stop making. What about you and your fake
I'm not
news?
gonna speak
What
for
about
you,
you and your
though.
fake news? All right.
Doesn't he like
All
have
right,
some
come-
kind of new strategy
all
or
right, all
something?
right.
Who's the coach? Is it him?
I don't know.
Well, he's got a spread.
You might have
he's
more
got a
information
spread
on this than
offense,
me.
and again, with an athletic quarterback who can run, I think what they're going to do is run a lot of four wide. You have a running back who can pass catch really well.
We also talk about how much he can run because that'll help him in terms of his development, not getting beat up as much right off the beginning while they get established. But this kid can throw from the pocket. He can go through his progressions. He has really good arm talent. His deep ball accuracy is actually very good from what I've seen on tape. And to be honest, his completion percentage was 70% in college. That's really good. A lot of people look at people with system.
That is great.
People look at like, oh, it's the system and all this other stuff. Yeah, but those guys usually don't have that great of completion
70%
percentage. They
is
just throw a lot.
awesome. Yeah,
Oh,
that
it's
is
ridiculous.
So let me ask you, Quinn. So if this was a team that didn't have a quarterback that they drafted last year in the top 10, do you think this would have been a mistake?
No, I think if they didn't have Josh Rosen, I think I would have taken him.
All right. So then, so we can move on from that concept of it because now you're. As far as it goes, I think we all kind of at least have an idea that Kyler Murray. We all think Kyler Murray is a decent quarterback. I do think there's two question marks with Kyler Murray. One was he was playing in an offense that does open up pretty.
Heisman,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be decent to win.
He
the
also had
Heisman.
6
Come
seconds
on,
to throw,
you know?
and they had probably one of the best pass protecting O lines in college football last year. So there are some question marks. And not even
That was
including
some of
a
the
high-
knocks on Baker were kind of like that too.
But Baker also had a few years. We only saw 1 year with Kyler Murray, and that was the other major issue is the 1-year starter in college football.
Oh.
And
Baker's Baker, though, man.
Yeah, it's a
no,
good point.
Baker, we saw multiple years of Baker is the thing. And listen, not everybody thought Baker should have went number 1 overall last year either.
But they were wrong, weren't they?
They were
They
wrong.
were wrong, Wojo, weren't they?
Well, now time
You have
proves
you
it.
have
So
their names written at home, right?
You see his shirt?
He's
Why didn't you wear
nodding.
a shirt today?
You go through them when you sharpen your knife at night, right?
all right, let's talk about the
Did
rest.
you?
Let's talk about the. So we see where the Cardinals are going. What do you think about the rest of this draft? Because I kind of like the rest of this draft. I think this was an insane draft. It kind of looked like they were just going off of PFF's big board.
Oh, they went with best player available. I mean, you look at Byron Murphy in the second round. They said, "All right, let's do it." I mean, he's a good pair with Patrick Peterson if you think about it.
Is
I
it?
mean,
Because
Yes, because Byron Murphy's opposite.
Yeah.
And you can play him to the boundary and not leave him one-on-one in man coverage all the time because you can roll the other way away from Patrick Peterson. This guy's going to come up and hit. He's going to make plays in zone coverage as well.
Yeah.
He's a good tackler. I think that he's got better athleticism than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good player. And I think that we were kind of harsh on him last time, I was more in comparison if I was, standing on a hill for my boy Greedy. But other than that, I mean, I think it's great value. And if you want to jump right into Andy Isabella, really explosive player, can play from the slot, can play outside.
There's
smaller.
some questions. There's some questions if he could handle press.
Yeah,
on
I
the
understand
outside.
that. But we've seen his ability to get off the ball, though, in terms of his quickness and his speed. So physical guys, yes, but if they can't touch him, it might not be a problem. His release is good. What I worry about with him is the ability to track the ball in the air, which is something that you can't necessarily teach.
Yeah, that one's maybe the one issue that he had coming out. Now, if he's beating the guy down the field, again, you're dealing with a lot faster guys in the NFL. He had a lot of catches. You're using him on the right route, and you're even if you're trying to do what they were doing with Paris Campbell, run him on crossing routes and lead him, and you have the other guys going straight downfield, and you have Andy Isabella running from the slot, kind of taking balls and trying to take them to the house and get some run after catch. He's had a lot of good games, and he's had 10 or 12 catch games.
Yep.
So I also like Zach Allen.
Yep. I like
great
these Boston
edge.
College guys.
Yo, dude,
I like them.
I like everything they did, like pretty much in this draft, all the way up to the 6th round.
Well, I like that they before we go any further, I like that they just said, "Hey, we're going with Kyler Murray, and we're gonna get a lot of receivers. We're gonna try to help him out." They clearly had that strategy, and they went for it.
Well, look at Hakeem Butler, big guy. This guy
dude.
dealt with a lot of drops, though.
Seems like Boston College guys are always tough.
They are tough.
Yeah,
Well coached, coachable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Zach Allen, solid guy, can play 4-3, 3-4 end. Solid pass rusher, very strong bull rush. Doesn't have a super variety of pass rush moves, but can one gap. Very powerful guy.
Yes, I agree.
And played with Harold Landry last year, a guy who I was a very big fan of.
Yes, I remember.
Hakeem Butler, big guy, fast guy, ran really well at the combine.
Still like an opposite of Andy Isabella, though, so getting a little like diversity in terms of talent and skill set.
Can play X, Y, Z, pretty much run right out of the slot, can kind of play that big slot role, can play flanker. He's also, but all the guys they drafted, except maybe even Keyshawn Johnson, all have question marks with dealing with press.
Yeah.
Hakeem Butler had issues with press, and Hakeem Butler had a lot of drops.
Yeah.
That was a big question mark. Now, a lot of people say some people were saying there were like concentration drops. They weren't like an inability, like it wasn't a skill issue. It was things that can be cleaned up. Also, he was catching balls that were really outside his frame sometime.
Yeah.
So part of it was the quarterback. You're hoping with Kyler Murray, way more accurate, and hopefully, and the ball placement be a lot better. Because he was grabbing balls that were just, I guess maybe some people were blaming him for drops that maybe shouldn't have even been on his fault.
That comes with the territory, right?
Yeah.
You get a guy that big, you want to be able to have that option to throw it outside the range. And that's what they're going to do in the NFL.
But what I will say is Hakeem Butler, solid route runner, good route tree. People were, him and DK Metcalf were getting a lot of comparisons this year, and we're going to talk about DK Metcalf in a minute.
Of course.
And people were arguing that Hakeem Butler should have been the number one receiver taken in this draft because of the size, speed, versatility.
Who needs size, speed, and versatility, right?
Only
Shit's
everybody.
overrated, man.
And I also love Deontay Thompson, man. He dropped
Where
hard.
they got him is good.
He dropped hard from medical issues, too.
Yes.
That was the other issue.
I wanted to ask you a question. You were saying before about the cornerback, the Murphy guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to go backwards. I don't mean to go backwards, but we were saying about Peterson. He's a head case, isn't he? Isn't Peterson a head case? Isn't he known as being a head case?
He's got a little receiver personality to him. I don't know that he's been anything detrimental to the team.
Seems like he's pretty good to his teammates.
Yeah.
Seems like he's, because I've seen him on the Football Life or whatever, and he's saying good stuff or whatever, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's one of those guys that's competitive and a little bit flamboyant, but I don't think that's a problem with edge guys as long as it doesn't cause any issues with the team.
You think he's going to be able to help this kid mentor him a little, or
for sure? Yeah, I mean, he did
teach him how to be a fucking diva.
Well, I mean, he did it with Tyrann Mathieu. I think they had good people. They've been struggling though to get somebody opposite him to play corner for a while now.
Okay,
and I think they might have figured it out.
Okay, good.
We'll see. All right. I also don't think if there's any diva to him, it's going to affect Byron Murphy because I think Byron Murphy's a pretty, buttoned up dude.
I think Byron Murphy,
that's what I was wondering. I was wondering is if that's going to get in the way.
Personality-wise, character-wise, Byron Murphy, as far as players in this draft goes, I don't think anybody was worried about his character. That's why there were teams offering to trade back up to the top of the second round to draft him.
I was worried about. You know what I'm saying? I don't think any of us care about if somebody's a little goofy or somebody's a little flamboyant. Does it bleed onto the field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think with Peterson, there's been a little bit of.
I think some of it's been frustration from losing, but like I said, I think he just cares about winning.
I also like this Keyshawn Johnson pick. Solid hands.
Also, I like his name.
Keyshawn
Johnson. Spelled different, but still good.
This one will have some talent, right?
Well, I'll tell you about this. The one knock that not the one, but one of the knocks they had on him was that they concerned with his ability to separate at the next level.
Yeah.
But I'm not less concerned about it because what he lacks in speed and burst sometimes, he's able to, with an understanding of being able to speed up and change his speed during his routes to kind of make up for that to get separation. Yeah. You see Antonio Brown do it. Antonio Brown's obviously faster than him.
Yeah.
But Antonio Brown is able to kind of stop, start, kind of lull you to sleep and then burst a little bit. He can do
has that quickness to go ahead and you can't keep up with me because you're not going to know which route I'm running.
He can confuse you with his speed. It's a little deceptive what he does, and I think it's clever. And I think it's something that he's been able to obviously adapt because he's lived with the fact that maybe he's not somebody that's like an Andy Isabella that can burst out of there.
And these three guys, Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler, and Keyshawn Johnson, all different types of receivers.
I know.
And then you tag them with with Larry
All
Fitzgerald.
these three guys are not going to make the team, right?
Yeah, well,
Could
Keyshawn
be.
Johnson might not. Hakeem
Yeah.
Butler being a 4th-round pick probably will. Andy Isabella almost definitely because he was a top
Are
of
they
the.
that low on receiver where 3 new guys are going to make the team?
I think so.
They were really bad on receiver.
I think Andy Isabella can kind of fit that John Brown role.
I think they only. I think there's 2 players that are probably gonna be like.
Because that seems a little unusual, right? 3 wide receivers in a draft that are all going to make the team. No.
Well, I think they've had some struggles with wide receiver outside of Larry Fitzgerald over the past couple of years.
Was it Christian Kirk that they drafted last year?
Yeah, I mean, but they're still
He was.
building.
I like Christian
He's
Kirk.
his second year. You know what I mean? They're investing in the fact that they just went after 2 quarterbacks 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
All right, so they want to try to give them help.
Yeah.
You know, they're.
Oh no,
obviously-
I like the fact they went 3 right in.
No, I'm with you.
And by the
I
way,
just
Green
thought-
Bay
I'm
did
just
that
wondering
last
about
year.
Yeah, no,
that.
it's a fair question.
Because a lot of times these guys, you think they're going to make the team, and sometimes they just don't.
But I think that's why you draft more to be, at the very least, build depth. And if they don't make it, the larger pool you have, you're more likely to get the talent out of it.
Green Bay did that last year with Marquise Valdez-Scantling and
Yes.
Equanimeous St. Brown, and they drafted somebody else too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but actually, it's shown statistically if you draft multiple players at that position, you're more likely to hit at that position, which kind of makes sense. But like if you're doubling down, you're finally figuring if you double down at a position and you draft multiple spots at that position. You're going to figure out that position eventually, hopefully. Unless you're very rarely are you drafting 3 complete schlubs at the same position.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm with you on that. But I would say if you're telling me you had guys, I would be offensive line. That's probably the
Yeah.
only 3.
That's the one thing
I
I-
would triple up.
I agree. I don't know if there was offensive linemen there that they valued compared to.
They may have gone with best player available.
Yeah,
for
like
other
Byron
needs.
Murphy.
Okay.
Byron Murphy was probably the pick they probably could have used on an offensive lineman.
I think they were just shocked Byron Murphy was still there.
Yeah, and you're getting a player you probably thought was a 1st-round pick for you guys. Andy Isabella's spot, maybe you could have gotten a guy, but Eggleton Jenkins and Eric McCoy were already gone. They're probably maybe Froholt. They could have gotten the guy who the Patriots got.
What I will say quick about the offensive line, though, they got some pretty good value in this guy, Lamont Gaillard.
Yes, I was going to bring that up too.
Some
the Georgia
people had
guy.
him as a 2nd-round talent.
Yeah, I
Some
liked
people did.
Gallard. I liked that pickup.
And it's an interior lineman.
Slipped to the 6th.
Yeah.
Wow, what
Well,
did they do?
different people have different values,
Yes.
and you don't know how teams are valuing them. And sometimes, when you
Like,
get
pick up a hooker or something.
when you get to those late rounds, you're
I was
drafting.
second round, man. I just wanted a blowjob.
When you get to those later rounds, sometimes you're drafting for
Laser
for
focus.
team need. You have to with this guy. You fucking have to. You have to.
And he's the one that had to go. He's got a schedule.
Yeah,
Dude,
right.
He's the fuck. He passed the bar. This fucking guy. All right. Okay. So let's.
I like that you brought up Gallard, and I didn't have to. Caleb Wilson's the only other one I really want to talk about. Athletic, tight end, but kind of reminds the guy who everybody was talking about last year, Gesicki. This is kind of what it reminds me of. He's very athletic, but you're not getting him for a 2nd or 3rd round pick. You're getting him for a 7th rounder.
Yeah,
So he's a developmental
good
guy.
value.
Let's talk about the other team picking in the top 2, San Francisco 49ers. And with the number 2 overall pick, they picked Nick Bosa, edge from Ohio State. And this wasn't as clear-cut as I think it was for them because need-wise, they had a lot of D tackles and a lot of 3 techniques and a lot of interior guys. And they didn't, even though they just traded for D Ford, they didn't really have an edge pass rusher to stick out there that, up to this point, that was a big need for them going into the year, and I think they've really solidified that issue. So what do you think about the San Francisco 49ers?
I think it was
First
good.
pick?
It was predictable and good. Like, we kind of saw them going in this direction.
Yeah, I think everybody was pegged them, especially. I think everybody pegged them because you knew D tackle wasn't really an issue for them. They have so much interior
What
pass
do you
rush.
think about John Lynch? What do you think about him?
Oh, I like him. I like him a lot. I think a lot of people had questions as to whether he deserved that position, but all accounts, he's very smart. He's calculated. He also listens to the people around him, and he knows defensive positions.
He seems very he seems like he has a nice way about him.
Yeah.
It seems like he's connecting well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It seems like, but sometimes you just never know.
You never know. And as he
Sometimes
was
you
as a
never know.
player, it makes sense looking back on it retroactively, but still I could see the concerns going into it because, there's still different jobs.
And it's
You know what
also
I mean?
it's a learning experience. So I think he's developed since his first year being a GM, and I like what they've done with the rest of this draft.
With the quarterback, though. They got lucky.
Yeah.
With that.
Garoppolo, yeah.
Well, I think that helped too because John's well connected, and I think that part of the reason why he went to San Francisco for, they didn't have to give up too much was because Belichick had a good relationship with the Shanahans and John Lynch, and they're all kind of in the same.
And I think it's Shanahan, and I think they're banking
Yeah.
on Shanahan's name. And because I think
John
Kyle
hired him, right?
Yeah,
Or they came in together?
they came in together.
Yeah.
I think John got the job because it was Shanahan going in.
Yes.
But I think Shanahan, and you can see there's some cohesiveness. They work well together. They're friends. I think Shanahan's had to put more into the player drafting than maybe he thought he was going to have to as well. But I like the receivers they picked. Debo Samuel, solid guy, again versatile, which seems to be a very big thing for Shanahan receivers. You saw with the guy they drafted last year who could play all three spots. Can't remember off the top of my head. This year Debo Samuel can play X, can play slot, can play flanker. Very good route runner, solid hands. Had some injury issues, but man, he tore up the Senior Bowl. I like that guy.
No,
I
some
like
people
Debo
had him.
Samuel, and I really, as far as like the receivers I liked, he was probably top 3 for me.
Some people believed he could. Right? That's why you got to draft him alone.
Some awesome names.
I think his real name's Tyshawn or something like that. Do I know? Is that a fun fact?
Oh, so they used the nickname.
I think it's a nickname.
A lot
yeah.
of times, Greedy's not Greedy Williams' real name.
I really like that Friday movie. I figured my firstborn was going to be called Debo.
But if someone gave you that nickname, that's even more impressive. You earned it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think too, if he didn't have those injury issues, a lot of people had him looking as like maybe a top 15 prospect. So you could get a lot of this. This is a high level receiver you're getting in the second round.
Yeah.
And then they went right back at it. You could see that they're trying to help out Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo. So this guy also a little different, big body.
Jalen Hurd. Almost kind of an
Big
H-back,
body.
kind of like tight
Yes.
end, kind of remind like Charles Clay.
Yeah.
Decent pass catcher. Also played running back at some points too, but he's kind of big to be a running back.
A little bit.
I like that pickup. I think they're going to try to use him versatility wise. Try to use some of the run blocking he's kind of picked up as and kind of move him around the formation. This is kind of what Shanahan does. He finds guys who have versatility that fits in his scheme.
Yes.
And can run blocking is a big thing for Shanahan receivers. You'll hear about it from both his time in Atlanta and when he was also the OC for the Cleveland Browns.
Fucking field goals, all right?
That's not his job. Shanahan's not a kicker.
Well,
Yeah, but he should have kicked that fucking field goal in the Super Bowl and they would have won, all right? Come on, man.
All right.
Fucking break here.
The weird thing I thought was after the third round, a lot of their picks were kind of
outside of those three, which I think make up for everything else, I'm just gonna have to trust John on this stuff because
drafted a punter again. Usually on day 3, you're talking about special teams, but it's still a punter in the 4th round.
You're talking about guys that could contribute on special teams. You're not talking about drafting.
No, yeah,
punters.
you're not drafting specifically for special teams.
You could get really good valued punters either 6th, 7th, or
most
likely on draft.
That's why I said 4th round was still really too high because
not unheard of.
4th round is really where you're getting the guys who are falling.
Yeah,
and who have maybe.
4th round to draft a punter, that's kind of strange.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not important. They are. We feel
or guys who you had rated maybe differently than everybody else. Maybe your 3rd round pick, but everybody else is like 5th. Dre Greenlaw had an interesting story. He was an orphan, man.
Yeah.
And so that's a nice little you get to the rags to riches kind of story. I wasn't a really big fan of the rest of these guys. I took a flyer on Tim Harris, Caden Smith, a tight end.
Caden Smith's got some. Well, Josh Jacobs, what we talked about earlier, he was living out of his car. His dad, they were living in their car for a while. Okay.
They didn't have a lot of picks in this draft, luckily. Yeah, the other
Wojo doesn't care about that guy.
Wojo's not very sentimental. I'm surprised you even brought up that somebody. There's all this story.
He's like, hire me.
He's like, well, yeah, but can you play? That's what he cares about.
No, I brought up the whole Dre Greenlaw thing.
I know. I was surprised.
Oh my god.
You're all business today. You're buttoned up.
I know.
Except it's unbuttoned.
No, just saying. Luckily, the 49ers didn't have a lot of picks because a lot of these, you just saw with the Cardinals.
Caden Smith, pretty sure-handed guy, but outside of that, I think he might just be a depth player.
Yeah. Well, especially because they have George Kittle, so they're definitely not trying to look for a new starter.
He's a solid blocker
Tight
too.
end's one of those positions, though. You don't know, right?
Yeah.
You put him on the field, he makes a couple catches.
Yeah.
Except usually don't keep
sneak
a
by.
lot of depth at tight end. Usually only keep 3
No,
or 4.
but there might be. He might have like I said, he's a little good, better in run protecting, run blocking.
They see him run block good, and they see him take a couple good hits.
Give him a chance.
And not fumble.
Not fumble.
Not fumble's the big one.
Yeah. So like any tight end who's ever been on the Giants. Oh,
with their random people.
Dude,
Kevin Boss.
We don't want to start talking about the Browns and who's in the Hall of Fame, right? We don't.
Gonzalez. Anyway, Seattle Seahawks, they had a weird draft, and they got an extra first-round pick for a trade, and then they pretty much traded out with their own first-round pick.
People say they had a weird draft, but this is Seattle's draft. This is
how
such
they draft,
a Seattle
man.
draft.
Draft.
They're very good at getting those depth guys that actually provide a lot more value than they're expected. Those middle-round dudes, everybody will pick them. Like, who was that? Why'd they pay? It seemed like they could have got him later. They always end up doing pretty well. They're never superstars, but they end up doing pretty well for them, and that's why they've been a fairly successful team over the past couple years.
Yeah, Russell Wilson carried them on his back last year, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he carried them on his back.
Well, they should address the offensive line. It's definitely something that they should do, and they did not.
No, they didn't. They did draft D lineman, edge L.J. Collier from TCU.
A guy that some guy has as a 4th round, 5th round rating. Just saying.
Very athletic guy. I think I've heard people had him as a 2nd round.
But this isn't that different from their Bruce Irvin pick, like a while back when he first came into the NFL.
And keep in mind, this is a team that if you look at guys who they've picked up, Deion Jordan, Barkevius Mingo, they find other guys, first-round picks who are busts and turn them into actual players. So
most people had this guy 4th round, and they
not most.
Not most.
People,
some of them.
Some.
Because he's kind of one of those guys. It's like he could have a high ceiling or he could have a really
very
low floor.
athletic guy. Needs to be taught some technique and some
You don't know
skills.
how he's going to translate.
But you know what it is? Some teams know how to develop certain positions, and if there's a team that I feel like can develop D linemen, it's the Seattle Seahawks.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Yep.
The two positions they seem to develop really well are defensive backs and D linemen.
That's why they didn't mind getting rid of Frank Clark.
Yep. And then they got a first rounder this year and a 2nd rounder next year out of
they
it.
have
so many picks, and then they turned it into Marquise Blair.
I'm interested to see how this guy does.
Marquise Blair.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're the big defensive back guy in the room. Did you see anything on this guy or not really?
I saw a little bit of him. He's a good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of when you're losing Earl Thomas to replace him, they might not know something I don't know. I just felt there was other players available that maybe could have fit that role. But to be honest, I trust Pete Carroll. We've been able to find him in the past.
And they might turn him into a corner at this rate. Who knows? Like they are definitely that team that they'll find guys and just turn them into something.
And a Utah guy, I mean, he skill set wise, he did kind of remind me of an Eric Weddle.
Yeah.
And I think Eric Weddle and Earl Thomas have a lot in common in terms of their skill set and what they can bring to the table. So maybe that's what they were looking at. They were looking at a combination of the two of them.
DK Metcalf was a good get for them, though.
This guy, Thor himself. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's giant.
This guy is ridiculous.
The all-body team is what they called him, right?
Josh Gordon 2.0 without the drug issues.
Yeah, man. I mean, but he's a guy that can be that Julio Jones. That could be his ceiling. Super fast, super strong, super decent route running. People knocked his agility, but I didn't really see a problem with it. I think his biggest issue was staying on the field.
Yeah, I don't get. Maybe I think that's more.
He gets tired.
No, because he got
injuries.
injured.
Yeah, injuries.
Yeah, he.
That's the next thing I was gonna say is. I'm sorry.
You saw that speed that he had at the combine, man. You
see it on tape too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You saw that speed that he had at the combine on tape. He's just beating guys, and not for nothing, you can't press him for shit.
No,
he's got those big ass arms that just knock you out. You're like, get the fuck off this line of scrimmage, man. You are not gonna press him. And he's got that speed that you feel like you have to play off, and he's just still going to run right by you. He is a beast.
He's a monster.
I cannot I understand why he fell to the 2nd round, and it's mainly for 2 reasons. One, his route tree was not that well developed, and I don't even think it was the agilities. I think it was the medical. He's had multiple medical issues, and he did have a couple of drops here or there. But you're talking about a guy who so did Josh Gordon, so did a lot of these big athletic receivers that are just he is a different animal. And I think that this was a get for the Seattle Seahawks, and they better use it. And I think that this is going to be Russell Wilson's new best friend.
Yeah,
it's going to be him and Tyler Lockett just going straight down the field. You guys can't catch us.
Throw it
See you
up.
later.
Throw
And
it
then the box is going to be totally clean, and they're just going to run it then.
You know, I when I see these big guys like this that are receivers, I get nervous because, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
this guy's not used to getting hit by people
true.
in the NFL.
They're also not used to getting hit by him.
If he's having problems staying healthy in college, he's not going to have problems staying healthy in the NFL. And I used to have a big dog, right? A big dog, Old English Mastiff, and I learned when you have a dog and you have a big dog and there's a problem, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a dog, but I'm saying is, you have a foot and it gets broken. If it's a big foot, it's a big problem.
No, I get that. And it's fair because of his injury issues in college, and he is going to get hit a lot more in the NFL.
His injury issues weren't, he had the neck issue this year, but a lot of his injury issues aren't repeatable issues.
Right.
So the neck injury, actually, I think was the reason why he came out and didn't stay, because he realized how short the career could be. And I don't think that's the thing that's going to stop him from being a player. There's some players who have injuries that are repeat injuries, things that you will see again and again and again, usually leg issues, especially if they've torn their ACL in both legs, or they've or they tear multiple ligaments in a leg and maybe it doesn't heal all the way. That's why they do these medical rechecks.
It's also important to know that he's going to be put with somebody who have him on some sort of regimen within the NFL and the organization to be able to take care of him, to get the highest quality care, and to maybe he's not taking care of his body the best way in other ways. Maybe he's pushing himself too hard in the weight room. Maybe there's a bunch of things that can lead to an injury.
He clearly pushes himself in the weight room. We've seen the pictures.
But maybe there's somebody that can incorporate some sort of active rest to his routine that would help him recover.
I was watching that show, Football Life. We talk about this sometimes on this show. Mojo's not happy about it. But they were saying that Carson Palmer actually got a ligament from somebody. Mm-hmm. Like the from somebody's daughter who died, and he knows the people and shit, and he has anniversaries with them and stuff. So I was just wondering, I told my cock if he doesn't behave,
This is the weirdest tangent ever. I hate you now. God damn it.
He let you speak, and now he's regretting it.
I can't believe we just did that. So then they drafted a bunch of other guys. Cody Barton.
Like him. No, I like him. He's a productive player.
Out of Utah. Gary Jennings. I think Gary Jennings was a little underrated coming in. Decent hands. Big guy too.
Yeah.
They're going for the big receivers here. So they did put one pick into guard with Phil Haynes from Wake Forest.
Are they doing a bang bus video, or are they do they have a team? You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is what they do. They get a bunch of picks and they see what lands. And actually,
I don't know, man.
They doubled up on linebacker. They got two different styles. They got Cody Barton, who's kind of just more of a ball hawk, always around the ball, and then you got the athletic sideline to sideline Ben Burr-Curvin. I mean, that guy could fly, man. Track and field superstar in high school. What did he run, 4.4 flat or something crazy?
I like. When I hear somebody's a track and field star, when I hear that, I remember Willie Gault and shit. You probably don't remember who Willie Gault is.
I know who Willie Gault is. I got Willie Gault there. I still watch NFL Network's top 10 whatever players, fastest players.
Talk to me about Willie Gault. All right.
But this guy too. Also, you have that track and field, but he's a linebacker. I mean, he's a hitter. He'll come at you full speed. His issue that might be though, he gets a little overbearing, doesn't break down all the time, misses some open field tackles.
Overbearing? You don't know anything about that, do you?
It's the theme of the podcast.
It's the theme of the podcast. It's our tagline, the overbearing podcast. Draftvice.
Don't be shocked about this Travis Homer, though, also from Miami. I think he's got some upside.
That's a team that running back, they rotate. I mean, they drafted Rashad Penny,
that's
and
why.
they're playing Carson.
That's why, because he'll have opportunities.
Yeah.
And that is one of the positions that I think, when you're dealing with running back, you just don't know.
Yep.
When somebody picks a running back sixth and he does well, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. And even if you find him in the 5th round and they do well, it's like, well.
I think it's more about conditioning, and I think honestly,
it's also about the O-line.
It's about the
O-line vision.
It's also about what kind of kid they are. What kind of person they are.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Any other comments on the Seattle Seahawks and their draft?
And all 37 of their picks? No.
Yeah.
We're good.
300,000. All right. So last team in the NFC West that we haven't done, the LA Rams. The Los Angeles Rams with Sean McVay.
I just want to ask you real quick. What do you think about Jared Goff? Do you think he's the real deal?
I actually always liked him coming out. When he was coming out, I liked him better than Carson Wentz because I thought he had better feet in the pocket in terms of throwing.
I like him too, but he was a bitch in the Super. He looked scared in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well,
Patriots defense, man. Patriots
they can mess with you. Belichick's no joke, man. And when he makes his adjustments.
From that, though? You think he's going to recover from that?
Well, he recovered from his rookie season when he was just trashed.
He wasn't that bad.
No. He was trashed by people for not performing, not playing well, and then he's mentally strong enough to be able to say, no, I'll get this.
Talk about a head coach that should not be in the NFL and he's not in the NFL. Jeff Fisher, man.
Let's not take shots at Jeff. Let's just move on. All right, let's
Case
punch up.
Keenum.
We're gonna punch up.
Punch up.
Who wants to talk about Jeff Fisher anyway? Right? I mean, maybe if we were in a strip club, we could talk about him.
Pretty good DB in college, though.
Speaking of DBs, Taylor Rapp was the first pick they made because they kept on trading down too.
A little concerned about his 40 time, but
I mean, you got him at the end of the second round, so it wasn't.
No, he's a good player. And I think that makes up for a lot, which is why he got drafted where he did. And I think they also covered their bases by taking my guy David Long, too, because there are guys that can play similar positions, too, in terms of, like, being in that slot corner, maybe even some safety. You would like David Long to be a little bigger, but, he plays with a tenacity that's up there, and he's got good quickness. He's got better speed than Rapp. And I think that both of them can contribute something, whether they complement each other. Mm-hmm. Good competition, too.
They also got Darrell Henderson in the third round, back up to Todd Gurley. We saw the injury question marks with Todd Gurley in the Super Bowl. There's been a lot of questions about arthritis in his knee.
I think this is a clear decision to try to, get him off the field on third down sometimes because he could do. Listen, they love using him in the passing game, but this guy can also do that.
Yeah.
The point is they want to not only cover their base if he gets hurt, but like you said, limit his carries. They want to be able to get other people into the rotation. They've been relying.
Well, I think they might
on
take him out. I think instead of taking him out on third down, I think they want 3 down players. So what they'll do is they'll take him out for a full series.
Yeah.
That's what I think they might do. Is have a rotational guy to get in there and say, hey, we'll do 2 series with Gurley, 1 series with Henderson, and rotate you guys like that. And I think that works a lot of times. It keeps the guys fresh, and it makes sure that you're not overloading Todd Gurley. And They did that with Zeke Elliott, too, and it happens on a lot of teams. Bobby Evans out of Oklahoma, solid dude, man. Solid. Oklahoma had 3 guys that came into this draft who I think a lot of people had it rated as a top 100 picks. I'm not. Bobby Evans was the one I was the lowest on, though.
Well, he was also drafted a little bit lower than some of the rest of them.
Well, they keep on trading down. Yeah. It was the thing with the Rams.
Good
but
value.
It's a good value. Can play right tackle, can play guard. They're going to need to start replacing some of the players that they're losing. They still have Whitworth, but Whitworth's getting up
75
there.
Years old.
Yeah, 92. He's going to be retaring soon. We know it. Yeah, and I'm shocked they kept on trading down and didn't try to take a tackle when they were up there and maybe try to do the Bengals move, which the last time when Whitworth left the Bengals, what they did, they tried to draft his replacement. Right. And didn't work out for them either. Like behind him, to sit behind him and play that guy at guard and then hopefully develop into being Whitworth's replacement. But you got to make your moves in trying to do that.
You just throw a shot at the Bengals for no reason, but okay.
Well, that was his story. I'm sorry. He's great left tackle, and he left. Like you said, listen, they weren't giving him the money. He went to the LA Rams and made him a better team. And that's the second Whitworth leave is the second. I think that the team takes maybe a step back.
For sure.
Greg Gaines, solid D lineman. Edwards, I thought the Wisconsin pick, David Edwards. I don't know if he's going to be playing tackle. I think he's going to be more of a swing tackle. Wisconsin took a lot of shots down. Like this year, they took a step down as far as their play, as far as the O line got beat up quite a bit.
Traditionally, they've had some pretty solid offensive linemen.
Joe Thomas.
Yeah.
It's an O line school. And
what's his name from last year? Remzik, or was that?
That was 2 years ago.
Was 2 years
Ryan Ramczyk, who went to the Saints. Yeah. I think that's a solid pickup in the 5th round. And again, you're trying to develop guys to replace guys who you're going to be losing or have lost.
I also like Nick Scott in the 7th.
Penn State safety.
I think that's good value for the 7th round.
Yeah.
Like this guy could come in and compete, but like I said, very he could be a contributor on special teams.
And we know Penn State.
That's another one of those positions, though, safety. I'm sorry, that you don't know how tough the guy has to be. Really tough to be a safety in the NFL. So I mean, 6th round, some of these first, second rounders, you don't know how tough they are yet.
Yeah.
A 6th rounder could be just as tough.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm glad they loaded up on some defensive backs in general.
No, I think LA Rams had a solid draft. Clearly the two teams drafting at the top of the 1st round probably had the better drafts than the other 2 teams. Just at least looking from, I think Arizona Cardinals killed this draft.
Yes.
In the NFC West.
Yes.
I think San Francisco pretty much comes down to Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel.
I mean, I like the Rams draft too. I think that
Rams draft, they got a lot of interesting, good developmental players.
I think Seattle,
guys who have solid ability.
Seattle, you just put a question mark because for the
Seattle.
most part, this is what it's like. Oh, okay, this guy, yeah, sure. Where did he go? He went to. He's from Ultapan. I don't know. Like you just like it's like I don't. and then they turn out to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't be shocked if LJ Collier ended up being a good player. I wouldn't be shoched if DK Metcalf. Well, I mean, I think.
all right, Marquise Blair might be a stud.
I thought DK Metcalf should have went in the first round, but I like all three. At least I could say there's probably 3 players in each of these teams I would want on a team. So
right, and they all drafted better than the Chargers.
no, there's 3 players in the Chargers I'd want to.
Nope.
So. Yep.
Nope.
Yep.
I don't want Tillery at all.
Why do you?
He'll
hate
be out of the
Tillery?
league in 4 years. I'm being. There's no reason for me to say that.
Did you date his sister or something?
I did, and here's the problem: you just love him so much that I can't help it. So that's all it is. It's nothing personal.
It's the family rivalry thing.
It was the first name he brought up. I walked into the room the first day to do the podcast. He's like, "Oh, Tillery." I'm like, "Okay, just let me get my bearings. I'm tired." I just woke up.
Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you being here.
Love being here.
We'll definitely have you on again.
I like this dynamic.
I
I like when we go off the rails.
Yes. Oh, that's why we have him. Take the rails off, and I have to try to re-steer the ship.
I take it all off, baby. I take it all
Just
off.
removes the bolts and everything. Come on back. We'll have you back soon. Thanks for watching. This has been Draftvice. We'll have a couple more episodes out this week. And you can follow me at Brojo Deathpunch, Brojo. Death is in the end of life. Punch, like, what you do. And you can follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. You can follow the podcast at Draftvice. Do you have any? I know we've already done this the other time, but do you have any social media? Maybe you've gotten since we recorded the.
No, I have
No.
a Facebook, but it doesn't matter.
Don't.
I just kind of I like to show up because I like to talk football.
Anthony Quinn on Facebook. I'll be appearing in the area too. Come out. Come on. Enjoy yourself. Cheers.
Like, follow, subscribe, and if you're on iTunes, rate, leave a review, and thank you.
Shout out to Arya Stark.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous about the past and about the future.